Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged.
Hey guys, how are y'all doing tonight? Who's ready for tomorrow to see what's going to happen? I know it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a really long day because the families that want to speak are going to get the chance to stand up and speak. It's going to be a hard day. Regardless of how we feel about anything, it's going to be a really hard day to watch a lot of people who are really affected by the loss of life here get it out in such a tense setting. It's going to be a pretty hard day. Question before we get too started in here. Put a 1 in the chat if you think Bryan Kohberger is going to speak at the sentencing tomorrow. Put a 2 if you don't think he's going to speak. Put a 1 if you think he might actually say something. Yeah, that's right there too, Teresa. A lot of people are actually saying they don't know if they're going to be able to watch it because of their anxiety. Yeah, I don't really think he's going to say anything either. Yeah, it's going to be really sad. The whole thing's going to be super sad. Yeah, I don't think we're going to hear from him. Some people, I can see that's the majority. There's a couple ones in here. Bella, Kimberly, y'all think maybe so? Yeah, Lorraine, I think so too. I think he's going to remain silent. But then again, we just never know. I don't think he's going to talk though. I have a couple different theories I'm going to be putting out here soon. I'm going to go ahead and start laying everything out, including the frat theories, all the theories. Because there's no answers here. There's got to be a reason why things are the way they are. I need to go back and see where things turned. I just want this discovery to hurry up and come out because I know that we have to be missing something. And I really think a lot of it is going to be in the evidence. But then again, I feel like if there is anything in the evidence, then they've already done a good job of getting rid of it. For when it comes to the real truth here. So I don't know. Because it's going to be really hard to keep speculating on a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are going to be chipped away at. So hopefully soon, because of what's happening tomorrow, we get some answers on some things and things start getting released. Because like regardless, they're not really doing anything. They're not saying anything. They're not really answering a lot of questions. The only person that's really came out and talked that's law enforcement is Chief Jenkins. And again, he wasn't part of anything. He wasn't part of anything, which I find really interesting, guys. I find super interesting. Especially since it's like said so much in the book, the James Patterson book. I find it really super interesting that even before Chief Fry got back to Moscow, something just told him not to tell Pullman anything for the first time in forever. Because they've worked dozens of cases together. And I've listened to like 2 or 3 different interviews that Chief Jenkins has done now. And he keeps like doubling down on the fact that Moscow not asking them any questions, like not communicating with them was so out of character that they were just super confused. Like there's apparently this like unwritten rule for Pullman that they need to keep their gas tanks constantly at half a tank just in case Moscow needs them for something. And if that's legit, right? And Jenkins didn't hear a peep from James Fry until 12/19, like he stated it all, in all of his interviews, which by the way, that portion in the book is wrong. In the book, they put Jenkins getting contacted on like the 28th, like right before the arrest in Pennsylvania, but that's incorrect. And I actually listened to another interview with him today where he reiterated it was the 19th and that he went and met Chief Fry in person on the 20th. But I find it really interesting that he apparently contacted Chief Fry to ask if he needed any help because that was the norm while Chief Fry was still on his drive back to Moscow. And he didn't want to tell him anything then. That's interesting to me. That's super interesting to me. Okay. Now, before we get into this interview that we're going to watch, there's some sources that are reporting on who might and might not be at the hearing tomorrow. Now, the Chapins are not going to go. We kind of figured that. They're apparently just going to be at the lake. The Goncalveses are going to be there. And after we go over this interview that Alivea did with Inton, we're going to go over an interview that Steve did today. He's a lot more calm. He's a lot more calm than he has been over the past couple of days. And it seems like Alivea, honestly, is like sort of okay with what's happening because it's really, really stressful. So maybe a lot of that's like rubbed off on Steve because he's sort of like, he's still not okay with it, but he's sort of like come to terms with it a little bit, it seems like. Anyway, we're going to watch that one after this one with Alivea. So the Chapins, no. The Goncalveses, yes. Now, you're going to hear that there's going to be a couple of them that don't speak because they don't want to be like in front of people, but that's, you know, that's understandable. Kara is supposed to be there. That's what's being reported by, I think, he said Kevin Fixler was over on, who was it? Surviving the Survivors podcast earlier. And I was just catching a couple pieces of it while I was cooking. KTVP reported that she was going to be there. And then Maddie's mom and stepdad's going to be there. And Ben Mogen, her father, might be there, but that's not confirmed. Like, it was previously stated he was going to be there, but it wasn't confirmed. Now, I did actually finally hear someone besides the person who talked to Drunk Turkey say that Dylan was at the plea hearing. Bethany, on the other hand, wasn't seen by him. That's how he made it sound anyway, because he said the one that lives in Vegas. But the girl, when she was talking on Drunk Turkey, said that she saw Bethany, that she could see Bethany like in front of her and that she was sitting with the Chapins. But Kevin Fixler is saying no, that Bethany wasn't there. So I don't know if we're ever going to actually know the truth on that one, because those are the only two accounts that I've heard. And, you know, both of them are different. So who honestly knows? Who honestly knows? Okay, let's go ahead and get this going over her. So what I have to do in order for us to be able to watch these, especially now, because YouTube just did like more updates on stuff that's going on, I'm going to try to more often go ahead and get them handled this way to where they're flipped and they have a filter on them. They're not edited. The only thing that's off of it is like the very beginning hellos and whatevers and the very ending goodbyes. Because why? It just has the like actual information. Nothing else is taken out of it. It's just flipped and there's a filter and my disclaimers on it so that no one can tell me anything. That's just how I have to do things. So let's put this way. Fix me this way. Okay. Put a 1 in the chat if you guys watched this whenever Bryan Inton's new channel hosted this the other day. Oh, I'm curious as to, I'm sure pretty much everybody's already seen this. Yeah. It's interesting. Some of the things that she says is interesting. But there's also a couple things in the book that keeps being said that goes back and forth too when it comes to things that Alivea said, which I still find interesting because she admits in here that at first she didn't want to talk to them, to Patterson and Vicky Ward, but then at the end of the day, her and her dad ended up actually speaking to them. But the book's like, I'm not done yet. I'm almost finished because I've been doing it in sections because we've been so busy with stuff. The book's like main goal so far is to make the Goncalveses, especially Steve and Kara, look really, really bad. They just keep saying stuff about Kara. Like every time there's something about Xana, they say something negative about Kara. But they're not doing the same thing when it comes to like, how y'all take this however you want to, when it comes to Ben, when it comes to Maddie, because it's, you know, not too different of a situation. So they just keep focusing on Steve and Kara in the negative, in the negative, in the negative. So, I mean, there's some common themes here to this book for real. Some very common themes. Okay, so let me put this right here because I forgot to put this up. Now, what I'll probably do too tomorrow is come out live like an hour early just so we can sort of like get a feel for what's going on social media, see if they have any validated lists for who might show up and what's going to happen. Because something else that they said is that there should be a list of the people that are planning to talk, but I mean, I don't know if they're going to release that the way that they're claiming that they will, because they're already, they're still so tight-lipped. But as of now, there's no update on the Moscow website. I've checked it like several times a day to see if it's finally there. I haven't seen anything. And there's, the only new document is that new contact order, which I understand like how serious the no contact order is, but I still find it interesting that it's for 99 years whenever he's already like in his, 30s at this point. Like he's not a vampire. He's not going to live that long. So maybe it's just like because they want the dramatics of it being 99 years. I still find it, I don't know why they didn't just do something. Why isn't it more like for the remainder of the defendant's lifetime or whatever, the accused or the convicted, however they word it? Like, why does it have to be something that sounds stupid? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and listen to this. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
I know. I mean, I hate to even ask this question because it kind of seems stupid, but I do want to ask you like how you're doing. I mean, it's been a lot, I'm sure.
Let me slow it.
Yeah, I think it's very.
Pause. Let me slow it down just a bit because whenever I recorded it a little bit fast. So let me slow it down just a little bit because I feel like that's a little bit fast for a live. Let's see how this sounds.
Day to day for me, right? Recently, I've had a lot of really hard days of just feeling like, okay. Man, like this is the conclusion. I feel like for me, I did so much like legwork and like preparatory work to like prepare myself for trial and, be able to come in strong, come in true to myself, like almost harden myself to what we were, kind of expecting this to be, but doing it knowing that like, I don't get to go to Kaylee's wedding. I don't get to go to Maddie's baby shower. I don't
see that comment right there was sort of controversial to me, the whole like Maddie's baby shower thing. But only because if you read the book, you read that Maddie was making a baby blanket for someone. And we also know about the rumors from the beginning when it came to like what certain people were saying. I have seen some people talking on Reddit and some other stuff about that specific comment because of all the previous rumors. So the only thing that I can really say to that is that if any of the girls were pregnant, there would most likely, like I'm 95% sure of this. I don't know why I'm leaving 5%, but whatever. There would be another charge. Because even though there's like certain laws when it comes to what like, women's options are for things, when it comes to someone else taking that life, there's always a charge. So take that however you want to when it comes to that. Because again, there's been a rumor about that when it comes to Xana since the very beginning of this. But again, there's no charges for that kind of thing.
I don't get to do these things. So in a way for me, it was like, I get to do this. I get to show up for you. So it's been really hard kind of grieving that part of it because I think I had hyped it up in my head to be.
Which is also kind of interesting that in the book, they announced it when it comes to like her interactions with the Facebook group people, that she had to like tell them that she was pregnant. That's why she didn't want like a bunch of upfront attention on the page or something like that. But I'm thinking to myself, like at that point, she'd already been out doing interviews and we pretty much already knew that. So I don't know. It's just stuff about the book. I read a lot of the book this morning whenever I woke up because I actually had some time. So there's just a lot of that like fresh in my head right now.
This like grand gesture that I was doing out of like sisterly love. And then to have it taken so quickly has just kind of felt like whiplash. But today's actually a good day. So on that flip side, I think that I have days where I feel stronger and, you feel kind of a weight has been lifted.
She kind of looks like Cher. Like, I know I've made comments about how thin she is because it's such a dramatic difference, but she's gorgeous. Like, all of the girls, including Samantha, are freaking gorgeous. But she kind of looks like Cher.
This isn't something that I have to put myself through. In fact, it won't happen. This is an outcome that I no longer have to stress about because, I have 4 kids. They're all, younger and they'll just.
See, like she's going to say, like going to the trial was going to be really hard. So as mad as they are, and they're still mad about it, given the fact that there's so many secrets, I don't really think at this point, honestly, that they have a choice but to sort of like be okay with it until something else happens. So maybe it is the right thing for now to sort of like just back up and be like, okay, let's just get past this point and see what happens after this. I'm not mad about it because you'll see like Steve's pretty much feeling the same way.
Of doing this for months in Boise was going to be really hard. So
yeah.
Today's actually a pretty good day.
What was it like at the plea hearing? I mean, I had been texting with you, but I didn't really get a chance to talk with you too much. But I saw you going in from a distance, and
Yeah.
I was just thinking about you and your mom and your dad too,
so.
and it just I can't imagine what that was like.
It was honestly pretty annoying, and that's just honestly my first reaction there. We didn't have any sort of communication with the prosecutors, like park here, we'll meet you, nothing like that.
Okay, guys, look. This part triggered me so bad, okay? Because again, regardless of my opinions on things and how I have been not okay with certain things that have been going on, this portion of this, oh man. For them to have no communication, no security, no escort in and out of the courthouse for, like, if this is the case for all of the families, which it sort of seemed like that when it came to, like, just the mob that just kept engulfing everyone, basically. I don't understand how we have such a high profile case and they don't, oh my God, they don't have the families escorted in and out. They just allow them to park wherever they possibly can and fend for them damn selves. Okay, that pissed me off. And if you've been here for a while, you know why it triggered me. Because what? You're just going to let them just walk amongst all of these crazy people that are out there all over the courthouse lawn, all of the media freaks? You're just going to allow all of that? That's just not right. No matter how you feel about anything, that is so not right.
So we had to park across the street at Wingo, just because we figured we'd be able to get a spot there. And as you're walking out, people start to recognize probably who my dad is, maybe who my mom is, and it just felt like we were walking up already feeling kind of vulnerable, and then it just started closing in, right? And you're kind of just asking for space, and you need to back up and this and that, and it's really not given. Actually, on the way in across the street, because we were across the street at Winco, there were 3 officers standing outside of a cruiser, and I was like, hey, is there any way that you can kind of help us just like get across the street and into the courthouse? And
they had to find their own help. Like what? Like what would they have done if somebody who was like off their rocker would have shown up and done something to Steve or to any of the parents? Just because of how wackadoodle some people have gone, because so many people have crossed the line here already. I just can't believe it.
They were super kind, and of course, they helped us in that way. I think the hardest part was my dad and brother waited outside of the courthouse, and not the whole process has yes, read it as a family, or even all of the families, I'd say, but it is very much an individual path. I can't put my mom and my dad on my back and make them walk my path, and vice versa. So it was hard not to walk in with, my dad, who is.
Something else we also need to remember whenever we're watching these interviews is that they've been talked to by a lot of people that are good with PR. Something else I didn't know until reading this book is that Shannon Gray's wife is apparently a big influencer over on Instagram. And that somebody related to them or that's really close to them in some way besides her husband, like that is some sort of like, producer type guy or whatever he does in that industry or whatever. Like they've had training with PR, like pretty much since the very beginning. And we learned that in the book about the Chapins too. So they basically just like got help in certain areas. So I know that watching certain interviews, you do have to be really careful because a lot of it is orchestrated.
Just our protector, and our shield. So it was me, my mom, my aunt, my sister Autumn, and then actually a Kernodle, a member of the Kernodle family, but we were all females.
See, I think she's talking about Jasmine. I know that I believe Autumn's the one that's going off to college here in a minute, in a few weeks or whatever. Jasmine and I believe it's Autumn got super, super close. They tell each other that they love each other, like for being close and stuff, like on TikTok and stuff like that, whenever they're, on social media. So I don't know for sure, but it's probably Jasmine that went with them. I don't remember seeing her there, but I feel like it would have been Jasmine.
So it already just felt kind of vulnerable. And then the worst part was just waiting. So we walked in, they didn't know that we were coming. They didn't know who we were. And so we're just sitting there waiting. Eventually we get taken to a little waiting room and then moved into an empty courtroom. And we're just waiting. And the police officers are there and they're kind of talking on their walkie-talkies back and forth a little bit. And I think that anxiety crept in for my mom especially. And
that's questionable right there to me a little bit. Why would police talking on like walkie-talkies make you nervous? Like I feel like why would that make you nervous? Did you think they were going to be coming and like trying to arrest you or something? Like I don't understand why the cops talking to each other would have made Christy nervous. That was just an odd statement. I don't know why it was an odd statement. It was just an odd statement to me.
It just felt like I just want to rip this Band-Aid off. Getting into the courtroom was also shitty. Everyone had been seated before us other than members of like the public and some members of the media. But all the families were there, prosecutors, everyone on the defensive side except for the defendant. And it literally, I'm probably exaggerating, but it felt like everyone turned and looked at us when we were walking in. We were in they're kind of pew setups. So I think that we were in that fourth row on the way back. And on the other side of us was members of the public. So once again, just like a very vulnerable feeling of.
So that chick that was over on Drunk Turkey, like there's a seating chart that she has. I'm going to have to take what she just said and compare it to what she has on that chart to see if it's accurate or not. Because again, Fixler is saying Bethany wasn't there and Chick said she was like basically like right behind Bethany's head a couple rows back. So I'm going to have to do a comparison.
Feeling misplaced, I guess. And then, once proceedings started, the judge kind of started in a funky way. I'll leave it at that for now. And that was annoying. And then
he kind of like disciplined everyone about about people calling. It was really
right.
Oh yeah, the like public call out for people were mad. I understand why they were mad. I'm not mad about people contacting the judge. I'm not mad about it. I feel like sometimes you have to contact the source of the problem. And at that point in time, he was technically the source because he was the one that was going to make the decision to approve it or not. Sometimes you just have to do things. I'm not mad about it, honestly.
Weird way to start it.
Yeah, I think that in my opinion, I respect his decision and I, even respect what he was saying. I think that maybe there was just a different way to say it, especially when on the flip side, he is kind of giving a lot more respect to the defendant who's literally admitting to murdering 4 people, 2 of which were my sisters.
Yeah, no, again, regardless. I did find it a little strange that he like acknowledged him for being polite by standing up. I don't know. It was a very strange, different vibe because up until this hearing, Hippler has been like a complete a-hole to the defense. And then we get to this hearing and now all of a sudden he's like thanking Bryan for being polite to acknowledge him. It was a very odd, it was an odd scene. Again, regardless, it was a 180 to like what we've seen here lately.
So I understand it. I'm not picking a fight with a judge. But yeah, that kind of set things off on a foot that I think that we even less were expecting.
That's how he started the whole case, though.
Yeah,
Hippler.
I mean, it was literally nothing. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like, oh, this is the moment we've been waiting for. They ask a series of questions and it's, kind of his nasally little voice. Yes, yes, no, no. And then, says guilty 5 times.
She does not like him. Like, regardless, she would probably talk like that about him anyway. Because that's like, I don't know why that kind of makes me laugh because it's just the way that she did it.
That's that. Thanks for the sign of respect, but you can sit now. So yeah, it was overall annoying. It wasn't necessarily emotional.
I don't feel like his voice is that nasally. I don't listen all the time. I don't know. I don't feel like
for me, and part of that could have been just how protective, I guess, that I was feeling of us being vulnerable in that state. But it was really hard to accept that that is an acceptable and even preferred form of, what is justice.
Yeah, that was the title, my thumbnail title, whenever the plea deal came out, and it was just the charges, yes, 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 and then like the signature at the bottom. Like, how is this acceptable? How is this acceptable? With no details, no information. Like, again, regardless of how you feel about anything, the trial is where the information was supposed to come out and finally start making sense. Sure, according to what they claimed. And now we just get to like nothing, not even like a signed like 3-page confession with information and details on it. Nothing. I just don't see how this is how the law is written. To allow this sort of like vagueness, it should have never been. Whoever wrote that is an idiot.
Was it weird seeing his parents? Because I had seen them the first hearing in Pennsylvania, but I had never seen them again. But I was wondering what it was like for you guys.
No, and it was just another thing where it's just like annoying, where I get it. I'm a mother. I have a son. But you think to yourself, and obviously I don't want to be in their shoes. I do want to, extend empathy. I don't know what that looks like. And I hope that, of course, I never do. But, when
did he say that? I know that I saw him do an interview with somebody that I think is on Trump's side. I don't know her name off the bat, but that's the one that I have recorded. I couldn't listen to it. So maybe it's in that interview that he says it. That would be crazy, because I know that's probably it then. Okay. I know that when that was announced yesterday, I went to the Goncalves' family page just to see if they had said anything. And the way that they posted it is that it was like a surprise. But side note, the case of Megan Boss that I brought you guys a while back from Waukegan, she went missing, and then they found her in a garbage can outside, and the guy that put her body in the garbage can and filled it up with bleach and left her there for almost 2 months was an illegal immigrant that had been here for years and years and years that they just let walk out because of the safety laws. Her mom, Jennifer, went to the White House and spoke with Trump, and it's on camera of them speaking. And he says something about how the guy was illegal, and she's like telling him how he got to walk out. And Trump says to her, "Watch what happens," or something like that. And 2 days later, he gets arrested in Chicago. That's insane. He's paying attention to like these cases all of a sudden. And I just, it's weird. It's just all of a sudden, it's interesting, especially the timing for that one. And then the statement for the Kohberger case. It's just interesting that he's paying attention to stuff like this right now. It's just interesting. But when it comes to that comment, I don't know how much the family has reached when it comes to like getting to the White House, but some people have made a comment that maybe possibly Cy Ray might have said something to Kash Patel, or people that know Kash Patel. They might have worked together at some point because of the FBI connection. And maybe that's why maybe Trump maybe knows some stuff about the case. I guess that's a possibility. That'd be kind of cool if Cy Ray, was like doubling down. Because again, 20 years of putting bad guys away, then all of a sudden you not only are flipping sides, but doing it for free. And even after somebody said that you were no longer working the case, here you come again with some more documents, and you're getting called a conspiracy person, like by the judge in the case. It wouldn't be surprising at all if Cy Ray was doing some work in the shadows. So maybe we'll find out the truth about that one soon.
Son comes home in the car that they're looking for, and he's aggressively cleaning his car in the garage at odd hours of night. I might feel a certain way,
honestly.
And then as more facts come out, I think that you can continue to love someone.
And also, whatever they were trying to say about him like fleeing in a rush or whatever, the book has that the hairstylist, when she cut his hair, I think it was like, I'm not even going to pretend to know the date. It's in the book. When that video comes out, you'll hear it again. But while that hairstylist was cutting his hair, like a couple of days after that doctor's appointment that he had, he mentions to her then that he's going to be going. So again, it wasn't like on like the 9th or the 10th, all of a sudden the parents are like freaking out and they've got to get down to Pennsylvania and get him. I mean, they got to get down to Washington and get Bryan back home. Like, it's just more proof that it was something that was planned out. So I don't know. A lot of people were questioning what Steve Goncalves meant whenever he walked out of the courthouse that day about how he knew whenever the parents bought the plane tickets or whatever. I'm pretty positive he means about like the plea deal thing. Like, I think that he feels like that side of the camp got like a heads up before the victims' families did, which is probably true. But I don't think it has anything to do about the Christmas thing. Hey, Bluebird, 8 months. 8 months. Have you heard prosecutor talk to fam since last hearing? I haven't personally seen that. I know that there was an interview that where are you at? Say It Louder said that there was an interview that he did on Fox. I think that's where he mentions it. I know that in all of the interviews that they had done, those 3 interviews, Shannon Gray made it really, you know, he made it a point to mention that the prosecution promised the families a copy of all of the discovery, not just for Moscow, but all of the discovery. So I'm glad that he at least came out and was like, hey, we were promised this, so let's hope that they keep their promise. So I'm hoping so, because maybe that's why Steve is a little bit more calm today, maybe, in that interview. We'll see here in a few.
But know that you don't support or condone their behavior or actions. I understand it was their right to be there. But yeah, that was a little frustrating. I didn't feel anger towards them. I just kind of felt like, wow. Okay.
And like you said, I mean, he just gave these one-word answers and pled guilty. I mean, what would you have, or what would you still like to know? I know you wanted other things to be in the plea deal.
Yeah, I think for us, we were taken aback by the plea deal because it happened so fast, and we never really had that conversation with the prosecutors that was like, this is happening. You know, I need you guys to prepare yourself. If it's accepted, that's that. So we were really taken aback in general. Our main argument wasn't ever for there not to be a plea deal. It really came down more to, let's get a full confession. And I think that
yeah, I agree. I agree with that portion right there. Like, if we would have had more, if the families would have been told, hey, this is the deal. He's going to give us everything from the time he really left to the time that he got there to what he was really doing to where the weapon was put and all of these things. If we agree to take DP off the table, if that was the case, then what are we to say anything? Holy crap, there's the full thing. But that's not what this was. And considering that, again, at the time that all this was going on, and things might have changed since then, but things such, you know, as simple as what time did Xana and Ethan actually get home? I always come back to that because everything about them is such a mystery. None of it has ever been validated. And in fact, everything has been reversed 1,500 times. So if we would have gotten that, then this would be different. I just don't understand, again, like how the law is written to where that's not required for this kind of thing.
That is what would have made the big difference for us. And it's kind of multifaceted. It was difficult to hear Thompson make his factual basis. I think that's what they called it.
Important right here that she says this
because
stuff.
The amount of times you heard him say, and we can't prove that, and we don't know this, and we don't think this.
Yeah. Or how about the fact that even now there's still people like there's a guy that's been doing YouTube forever named like Ray William Johnson. He's got like kind of tall Johnny Bravo black hair. He does like, he's at the top of the screen and he does animated stuff at the bottom. He just did a video on this case, and the amount of information in there is wild. He talks about him meeting Maddie at the Mad Greek and stuff about him being at the house constantly with the phone pings and all the things. And I'm just like, this video is going to end up getting millions of views, and no one is going to go and listen to the plea hearing where Thompson says, but we can't put him in direct contact with 1122 King Road, no matter how many pings there was. We can't put him at the house. No one's going to go listen to that. They're just going to go and listen to the misinformation. And apparently Jesse Weber was on some Julianne Dory, I think. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I listened to about 2 minutes of it and decided to put it away for a review video because the comments are basically saying that Jesse Weber doesn't know a damn thing about what he's talking about, because he apparently says that Bryan Kohberger was driving a Toyota or something like that. And he has been covering this case since the second that it broke. I mean, he was the big WFLA that I was watching whenever the house was being torn down. And Home don't even have the car right. Okay? So again, facts matter. And the fact that she's like, it's really difficult that they're saying that they don't know this, they can't prove this. Yeah. Hello. Duh. That's the problem with all of this. Why do you think so many people are upset? Like what? Why is there no definitive on any of it? Nothing at all. I just don't understand it. And I'll never understand it. No one will ever make me believe that this is supposed to be how things are. Because regardless of how you feel, there's no way this should have even been a conversation if there was not a full confession that could be made. Because if he's innocent, he can't make a confession. If he's guilty, he can make a confession. And right now I'm not seeing a confession. So what am I supposed to think whenever there's still no details? I'm not going to sit here and just automatically be like, oh, that's got to be it. Something doesn't feel right. And I'm not the only one that thinks that.
In my opinion, was very weak, especially when there was an outcome, there was an ending here where we didn't have those questions, where, there was a full admission. I also think that the full admission would have been helpful, not only for our healing, because I think for me specifically, and I wish I wasn't this way, I need that full picture.
Yeah.
Right. I still just feel like I don't even understand what the hell happened. Right. Like none of it makes sense to me.
Exactly. That's why it was really interesting to hear Kara's take, because this whole time she's been adamant she's got to know. And I understand why some people might feel like they don't want to know. But I'm definitely like, I would need to know. I wouldn't be able to stop until everything had an answer. Like, there's just no way. There's just,
and I can look at these facts that, as far as putting something together in my head that makes sense, it's really difficult for me to do with a lack of. But I also think that so many people are, invested or interested in this. And I do think that it has changed a lot of people's lives. And I think that they deserve to have the confidence as well. I think that there was certain elements, like where the murder weapon was, certain chemicals that he used on his car, certain receipts.
See that part right there, the chemicals for the car thing. Like, I understand that it was like a while, okay, in between the time that the crime happened and whenever he was arrested. So people say, that length of time is the reason why there's nothing in the car. I don't honestly believe that at all. But then we had Howard Bloomblum, whatever, come out and claim that there was going to be some sort of connection between Bryan Kohberger and some chemicals that were apparently stolen from some lab, and that in a few weeks, everybody was going to be talking about it. It's going to be this big, huge, explosive story. And then nobody said anything. So I don't know if that's because it's true and because it's under like a gag order, because now it's part of the case. We're going to find out later. But to me, that would be something that's a separate incident. I don't see why it would be under the gag order if that was something that was real. So I'm just going to stay on the assumption that that's not a true story. But they get all that information. They get all of their information from people like that. That's why I said, like, I always felt like Steve just had a bunch of trash in his head, and he just sort of like hangs on to things that fit what he feels he needs to believe, if that makes any sense. And I feel like this is probably one of those things, because there's been no proof. There hasn't even been anything in what happened with the stuff at WSU, because again, the court document that came out that talked about that investigation, he was found to have done nothing wrong. So that chemical thing is wild that they keep mentioning that.
Certain, data that was deleted from his phone that could have been.
And see, I can't really believe that part either, because this is somebody who wanted to help with like cloud-based forensics. He was trained for years and years that you cannot delete your footprint. he would definitely be one of the people that would know that just deleting something from your phone doesn't delete it, so that it would be pointless to do so. See, it's stuff like that that just makes me be like, but that doesn't make any sense. That's like the opposite of what makes any sense.
Kind of corroborated potentially to further put to bed some of that white noise that exists online and some of what these conspiracy theorists continue to this day slander mainly my sisters through this process.
Oh, you mean like JLR? See, that's another thing that's really shocking to me. And I was actually talking to my buddy about it earlier, and I'm like, I don't know if it's like really like how he is or if it's like a tactic, right? Because what she just said was basically all started by JLR, because he came out way early on calling them sugar babies, saying they had certain pages on certain websites selling things of themselves and all kinds of stuff. And then all of a sudden, you know, him and Steve are buddy, and we see a selfie of JLR and Steve's got his arm around JLR's neck. But he was out here saying all this stuff about them. And he was like already pretty decent, had a pretty decent following at the beginning of this. It's way bigger now, but he already had like hundreds of thousands of people already like talking about that kind of stuff when it came to them. No one's ever produced any proof of that. No one's ever produced any proof whatsoever of that kind of stuff. So then I, this morning, sat back and I was like, okay, what would be the freaking reason with as protective as Steve tries to act, right? Why would he want to be friends with someone like him? How could he even be in the same room as someone like JLR, knowing has to not know? Like, there's no way that he doesn't know the kind of stuff that he did start about Kaylee and Maddie. So whenever she said this in this interview, I was like, y'all let him in y'all's house. What do you mean? Like, y'all literally opened that front door and said, come on in. Physically. I don't know. So I don't know if he like actually does like JLR and for some reason he's forgiven him for that. Or if he orchestrated this friendship with him in hopes that maybe he would shut his mouth and stop. I don't know. Just stuff that I was thinking about this morning.
You know, and to say that, oh, he's a fall guy, or, you know, he's not really guilty, or, you know, XYZ, and use whatever convoluted, you know, piece of something or nothing at all to kind of.
And see, that part right there bothers me because of what she just said. She just said it was difficult to hear how the prosecutor can't prove this. They don't believe this. They don't know this. But then she says, but then people think this. I understand why you would maybe have like a wall to that kind of thinking. But how do you not hear yourself having questions? Like, we hear it. Maybe at the time she's muting it to herself, but she just came out and admitted how it's weak as hell and makes no sense. So then to say that, like, how can you question the fact that we have questions whenever you have questions yourself? Steve's had questions from the beginning. So I don't know. It's just, I feel like they don't hear themselves. Thank you for the $10. Say it louder. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Prove their argument. So it would have been nice to have that level of confidence. Not that we ever thought that this defendant wasn't guilty, just because it's like, let's put every nail in his coffin.
Well, see, I don't know if that's true either, because Steve had some questions. He still has a lot of questions. He just does it in private, but we've seen some of them. We've seen some of his questions. But also in the Amazon series, Steve Jr. and Alivea, the Chronicles of Alivea, there's like standing on a boat dock, and even Steve Jr. is like, we have to make sure we have the right guy. And I don't think that you just like openly say that if you don't have doubts. You know what I mean? Plus, Steve also made a point one time, not like a point, but he said something sometimes, that sometimes he has to remind his kids that there's like all this evidence and stuff like that. Well, his own child just said, you know, they didn't really have much of anything. It's really frustrating because they didn't have anything. There's just so much here. It's a lot of psychological warfare.
You know, I don't have a more eloquent way to say that.
What did you ever get a chance to tell the prosecution that you wanted a full confession, and did they ever respond?
So as soon as we got the email on Sunday, you know, I was kind of trying to do everything that I could. We didn't even know if the deal had been sent to the defense. but immediately I said, has this been sent to the defense, and like, can we include concessions for the victim family in the form of XYZ? And at first it wasn't just a confession. It was also, kind of like, can we make him not be able to make money off of this? Can we make him not be able to talk to members of the media? I understand that there's First Amendment rights there and stuff, but in the moment, you're not necessarily thinking super clearly. You're just trying to say like, well, give me something here. And they replied the following morning and said that they could meet with us later in the afternoon, but that the deal had already been sent to the defense and there was nothing they could do.
It wouldn't have mattered anyway. The prosecutor is always going to do whatever the prosecutor wants, and the prosecutor always does what's easiest. Always. They don't care about anything else.
And then we met with them later that afternoon after the deal had already been accepted. So I even continued on after the deal had been accepted or whatnot, because it hadn't gone to court yet. It hadn't been accepted by the judge. And I continued to literally beg and plead that they amend it to include the full confession. At that point, that was all we were fighting for. And they eventually, replied and said that it would be an ethical issue for them to do so.
An ethical issue? It's an ethical issue for you to get a confession from someone. Okay, someone made a good point, and I'm just going to reiterate the point in my own way. If I were to walk into the police station right now and say, hey, yeah, that murder in that one town on that one date with that one person? Yeah, that was me. They would not just like instantly put me in handcuffs and put me in jail. They would bring me into an interrogation room. They would ask me a whole bunch of questions. They would try to see if there was anything specific that I knew. They would have me write a report. They'd have me write a statement. Where is that? Where is that? Because if there was one written at any point in time, even if we're not being allowed to view it, why are we not at least being told that it exists? This is just stupid. This is dumb to me. I don't care what anyone else's opinion is on it. No one will ever change my mind. This kind of thing happening with no details being allowed, and then being said, then the excuse is, well, that's an ethical problem for us. Like, it's unethical for you to make sure this is the guilty person? I'm sorry?
So I think legally they could have, but because of the ethics for this quadruple murderer, they were not willing to make any concessions on our behalf.
Yeah, that makes no damn sense, man.
I think on the outside, everyone has wanted
There's
to
like
know
a
what the
reason.
motive is. Have you been able to get any information? Is there anything that we don't know about whether he, who the target was, or whether he had a connection to someone in the house, or why that house had?
I think that this connection theory started when they announced that this was a targeted incident, right? Because people, and they use this targeted incident as a way to say that the community was safe, right? I think that was definitely the wrong word choice. And I think that
now she's right in what she's about to say, but I just want to remind you guys, in case you guys forgot. I might put it together in a video another point in another time. That first interview that the Goncalveses did with Brian Inton, Steve just does make a comment about the targeted word, and about how he didn't like it because it pitted the families against each other. And earlier that same day, he'd apparently said something to the rest of the families, but not the Chapins, Maddie's and Xana's, because he says something about how maybe it would have been possibly to Dylan and Bethany's too, but I don't think so. Because you're going to hear later down the line some honestly kind of disturbing shit when it comes to Dylan and Bethany and Alivea and communications that were not made, which I find really interesting. But yeah, we'll just get to that. I'm going to stop talking so much.
If I go back now and watch those press conferences with Sheriff Fry, you can see that, right? Where he says, we can't say that the community isn't at threat, but by then the targeted had stuck so much for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think what they meant to say.
Well, it wasn't for whatever reason. It's because the mayor came out and made a statement basically against what the police were trying to do. And it really just it caused a stir.
Was something along the lines of, we believe these victims have passed some time ago and there hasn't been any further attacks on the community. And the roommates inside the house were home during this attack, and they also were not attacked. So we think that the community is safe because of the time lapse that has happened here.
She's right. I feel like they could have worded the situation better, and they really can't say that it's because they didn't know. Once they knew that it had been 8 hours, they probably could have worded everything a lot better, but it didn't help that the university basically went against like any sort of protocol that the police would have used for this and put out those 2 alerts. Because that also really like stirred up a lot of stuff. The university's involvement, like within an hour.
But I think maybe an easy way to say that is targeted. Maybe isolated would have been a little better, but I don't know if isolated was charged enough to kind of stick the way targeted did.
Yeah.
So that being said.
And it was confusing, remember? Like they said targeted, but then the prosecutor said, then they said not targeted, then the prosecutor said targeted. It was like the story was
someone in the house.
Yeah, the book mentions that a lot about how Bill Thompson, which is a whole nother thing that's wild because the book is like, oh, Bill Thompson doesn't talk. He's like this hard ass that people don't really know that he's like this hard ass, right? And he never talks about anything. Even after sentencing and the case is over, he still barely talks. But like, then the book does nothing but talk about how Bill Thompson wouldn't shut up and stop doing interviews, how he made a statement to Brian Enton. And then how he did that other interview with the lady that a bunch of people talked about, how basically he said that there was no threat. He felt safe enough to like, if he had kids in the area, he felt safe enough for his kids to like go back or whatever. And people were like, how did you know that so early on? Like how can you feel comfortable making that statement whenever you've got no answers? So like, again, the book makes it sound as if, oh, he never talks. But like the majority of the problems have been Bill Thompson talking. A lot of the things that we've learned in court from the defense, I mean, a lot of it's been Ashley Jennings making slip ups, but a lot of it has been Bill Thompson's temper tantrums, you know?
And it was the house itself.
Yeah.
Then it was the street sign and maybe the dog. Sorry, Murphy, don't mean to bring you up, but I genuinely.
I mean, let's be for real. There's 1,000 questions when it comes to the dog. 1,001 questions when it comes to the dog, especially after we hear in court that he was barking for an extra 30 minutes, technically outside, according to the testing done by 2 police officers after SV1 left. But we're not going to ask the question in court about how the frick the dog got back in the house 30 minutes after the suspect took off. We're not going to ask those questions. I'm sorry. Why? Why are we not going to get answers to that?
Don't think that they meant to get themselves into this targeted hole the way that kind of this targeted snowballed itself. But I think that frustration came from us with, it's like you're saying it's targeted and you literally say in a press conference, you're just going to have to trust us. And then at the end, it's all found out that, well, he didn't have a connection to anyone. So we're obviously sitting there thinking, well, then how the hell is it targeted? I don't know a why. I think that even if he was hooked up to a lie detector and given truth serum,
But I want to backtrack for a second because she said, I think a lot of this connection stuff started with but it continued on with the Goncalveses. Because even after, technically, the prosecutor already stood up and we've already been proven in court with documents and both sides stating this, that there's no connections between him and the victims on social media either. The Goncalveses have continued on with Instagram, and no proof. No proof of any of that. So she can't sit here and say, oh, it's because they came out and used this word, and that's where the whole thing, got all of the weight. That's not true. A bunch of false narratives being pushed is where a lot of the weight for that came from.
Why would be that he was just desperately trying to feel anything at all because he's a psychopath and he doesn't feel human emotions the way we do. I don't think it's a reason that would make sense to any of us because we aren't that. I think that reasoning would only make sense to that type of, human being or whatever you want to call him. But as far as the connection goes, I do truly believe in my heart that he at some point had spotted probably, I don't like to say Maddie because I think that naming someone implies a certain level of like victim blaming or guilt, and I don't feel that way at all. So that's why I have always hesitated from saying anyone at all. But if I just look at it from like a factual basis of being like, he went directly upstairs, Kaylee wasn't, in that house as much towards that tail end there. But again, they're all assumptions.
Yeah, but the fact is that the family, like the family that's involved, the biggest when it comes to the media, is the one out here pushing that assumption. So it carries a lot more weight when it's coming from that side of things, even if they have no proof, which they don't. Again, it's all just an assumption based off of nothing, based off of actually nothing at all. I just can't believe like how much stuff has like continued to come out as something that's a so-say fact, even after the actual prosecuting agency that wants to charge him and make sure that like he never gets out, even after they come out and say, no, that's not accurate. That doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anything.
The hell do I really know? You know, I think the most logical thing would be someone on the third floor, because that's where he went first. And I think that's the only place he planned to go. And I don't think that he anticipated Kaylee and Maddie being in bed together.
Yeah, and back to what you said.
Now, I was listening to a channel called Phoenix talk about something the other day. And it prompted me to go back and listen to the hearing, because that's actually said in the hearing, which is sort of interesting, because Thompson says that they're not going to basically put out the idea that he had the intention of going in there and taking as many lives as he did, which is interesting because that there's an assumption there that they have evidence of something that would give them that assumption. Because you either think that he went in there, if you're the state, you either think that he went in there to take out as many people as possible in that one house, for the house being what it is. And that reputation was also, given a lot of fuel for the fire from her right here. She was pregnant and in that camel tan skin, damn turtleneck sweater thing. And she came out and said that that was a party house. So they can't get mad at us for that either, because they're the ones who started that one too. But they can't sit here and say, oh, it was because of what they were, because of what that house was, but then also try to say he didn't have the intention of taking every life in that house, so something, must have happened. Which is it? Did he target the house with the intention of taking as many lives as he possibly could? Or was there just one specific target and everybody else was collateral damage? Because those are two very different things. But they don't know. They have no specifics on anything. It's like they're just like jumbling up as much together as they possibly can.
About the prosecutor's factual basis, it doesn't seem like they really know either, right? I mean,
they told us they don't know. We didn't know if that was kind of a bluff and they had, something that just was covered by the gag or whatnot, but they have never told us that they believe it was blank.
They made the families think this whole time that they had it all, that they had everything they needed. So I asked the families now, Olivia's making a comment on it and Steve's made a comment on it, but like not a lot of people really made a comment on this specifically. How do y'all feel being lied to by the prosecutor about the weight of the evidence, that it wasn't there the way they made you trust that it was? The same way that I asked Emily, how does it feel to be lied to? Now that the evidence came out and everything that Dylan told you is a damn lie, how does it feel to know that you were lied to? I asked the families, what are y'all going to do about the fact that the prosecution lied to you about what they had here? I don't know how these people can get away with this kind of stuff.
Would you want him Kohberger to speak?
Oh, this is funny right here. Not funny, because none of this is funny, but I feel like Bryan Inton was trying to get permission for something right here. So it's going to be real interesting. And if there's some crazy left that happens here and Bryan Kohberger does end up talking someday and Bryan Inton does an interview with him because of this comment right here, she's going to never, ever talk to Bryan Inton ever again if he ever talks to Bryan Kohberger.
At some point, I mean, you were saying how like for you want to know everything. Would you want him to like do some kind of interview where he tells all, or would
you want me to interview him is what he's trying
I don't
to
think
say.
So. And I understand how that sounds contradictory.
Look at his disappointed face.
But let me explain.
Look at his face.
I think that it should have been down.
See what I mean?
I think that it should have been done within the bounds of the legal system where he didn't have control over it, where he doesn't get to, control this narrative where it's done in a sterile environment. And in a way that is, read or perceived as a court document.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait. I hope we get him, man. I I hope they release the interrogation tapes. I want Monroe County. I want Idaho. I want anything that they recorded interview-wise. I want anything from Dylan, anything from Bethany. I want anything that was done on a damn videotape or with a freaking recorder. And I don't want a transcript. I mean, I'll take it if I have to, but I can't really trust that. I want the videos. I want the videos.
About him. It's not about his name. It's not about his face. It's not about his voice. It's literally a means to an end, right? It's, you know, this individual has this information, whatever, X, Y, Z, if you just think about it, like kind of in a calculated manner. So no, I hope that after sentencing, no one ever says his name again, because I think that an individual like he is, any attention is positive. He views it positively. It doesn't matter if someone's talking poorly or talking positively about him, because attention is what is craved and it feeds into his ego. So for me, I think the best way to, you know, kill an ego is to stop feeding it. You know, I hope that his name is ever, like, never on another headline, you know, call him the.
Which, by the way, the irony of this is interesting, because as she's saying this to Bryan Inton, the title of this interview has Bryan's name right in it. It's just interesting to see how these like mainstream people act whenever they're being told this kind of stuff.
The defendant, call him whatever you'd like. There's 4 other names that are much more worthy of, you know, being written or spoken or remembered than his name. And to be honest, I don't say his name. I've never said his name. Like in an interview setting, very, very rarely within the confines of my own home, very, very rarely, you know, in a text message with a family member or anything, because I don't think he deserves it.
Yeah.
I can't blame her for that. I can understand like not wanting to give it power. That's just something that like you either understand or you don't.
And I mean, you mentioned the people who do matter, your sister Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, Maddie. I think something about them, I think, came through, and I think that that's the reason this story has become what it is. I mean, there's just something about all of them that is so special and wonderful and innocent and nice. You know what I mean? Like other stories that I cover, you know, sometimes there's a reason, oh, well, the victim might have done this. These are just all such good.
Did he just say that in some of the stories that he covers, there's like a reason for people getting their lives taken? That's not really a good look. I don't really think it had anything to do with how nice they were, honestly. I don't think people really look a lot at that. We look at how just insane the case is in general. I mean, 4 people, not in an actual sorority house, something that's off campus. They all pay their own bills. It's room-to-room leasing. There's not a lot of connections. Some of them were at the end of their careers in college. One of them was about to be taking off, wasn't even technically living there anymore. I mean, just the details itself. I understand what they're trying to say here, but it didn't have anything to do with how nice or not nice anybody was. There were no answers to 4 lives being taken in a matter of minutes. That's enough to get the world's attention. I don't really understand why the rest of it honestly matters. The point was to get to the truth. It doesn't really matter if they were nice or not. These are lives. These are lives. It's just a weird statement he made.
Good kids, like, and I think whether you're a mom who has a kid in college or whether you're in college and you relate to it, or whether, I don't know, there's something about Kaylee and the other 3 that really, like, something about it connects with people.
It's horrendous.
I obviously agree. And thank you for saying it. Yeah, I know that I didn't have the privilege of meeting Xana or Ethan, so I can only speak directly to Kaylee or Maddie. But they were genuinely good people. They weren't into, you know, anything that is like associated with negative connotations. Like they weren't bullies, they weren't mean girls, they weren't, you know, stuck up, they weren't rude, they weren't, you know, all of these things. Like they were.
Now I know that there's a lot of people that have questions when it comes to, what's her name? Hannah Cleary, her death situation. I've never dug into that to see like too far into what people were saying, because the family didn't want it. So I just didn't. So I know that a lot of people are probably going to hear that and like argue it because of some of the other things they've looked into. I know that when it comes to like family things, they spoke a certain way, but I don't know how they were when it was outside of family. I'll say that. I have conversations, like screenshots of conversations. But family stuff is different. So I've never seen any proof of them being like mean to people. I've always heard that they were nice about everything and, you know, never heard negative stuff. But I never look for that kind of stuff, honestly.
Very well-rounded, funny, down-to-earth people who were right at that cusp of being like, we made it, right? You know, we put in the hard work. We went to school. We got our degrees. Like, we did it, right? And then I also think just the nature of it, of knowing that, you know, even in a community as small and as safe, I would still call Moscow a safe place, believe it or not.
Have you not read the book that your own sister's story is in? Because the amount of crimes that have taken place in that area is pretty wild, considering how they keep trying to pretend like nothing ever happens there. Okay.
In the middle of the night, 4 of them, one of them being Ethan, who was a really tall guy, you know,
athletic, big guy,
really strong guy, really tall and strong guy, to be taken in the way that they were is almost everyone's worst nightmare, right? Right next to the, you know, did I hear something outside of my shower? So yeah, I think that it's the nature of just who they are and how just much they deserve to be here. Just as much as, like, I think they're just relatable, where it's like, I can look at Kaylee and see my daughter. I can look at Maddie and see my sister. I can look at, you know, and I'm speaking from an outsider of view, you know, when I say that. I think they're all very relatable, and it's anyone's worst nightmare. It's a parent's worst nightmare. It's a sibling's worst nightmare. Aunt, uncle, grandparent, just, they did everything right. You know.
Did y'all know that the book says that there was another girl that apparently was in the ride that Kaylee and Maddie took to the corner club? That there was another girl at the house that night that got ready with Kaylee and Maddie and went to the corner club with them in the same car? Yeah, I didn't know that till this book, so I don't know how true it is. Because we've never heard that. At least I've never heard that from anyone, not even the families, unless they were asked not to mention it, like right off the bat. I don't remember if it says the girl's name, but there's a story about that in there, and I found it interesting.
Ubered out, Ubered in, stuck with the buddy system. They were in their beds, not doing anything, doing exactly what they should have been doing, and it still happened.
I think people, because your dad has been the most sort of visible, and I think, and he's sort of, like you said, the fighter, and speaks on behalf of the family, and people just, you know, respect him. But I don't think people realize that you're kind of like the fighter behind the scenes. At least that's what it seems like to me, you know? And your family is so nice. I mean, your mom and your dad, you know, I've been to your house, and like, they're just, you guys are so nice, and they love each other so much. There's just so many messed up families in this world, you know what I mean? And like, you can just sense the love amongst you guys.
So you're trying to tell me that you don't know about Samantha Nelson, Bryan? Interesting.
And like, when something like this happens, I'm sure with a lot of families, people, you know, fall apart, I'm sure, you know? But it just, I don't know. I've been so inspired, and same with like the Chapins who I met, and but with you guys, just because I've been to your house and stuff, it's just amazing to me that like you're managing to, I don't know, just still be somewhat okay together, you know?
They've got a big support system.
I think maybe it's just that stubbornness in us, you know, like we're just too stubborn to split. I don't know. No, I'm joking. I think, yeah, we've always had a really strong foundation for family where, you know, we've all messed up a time or two. And we also have, you know, kind of a communication where I can sit there and say, no, you were wrong here. And I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. And then, you know, we don't talk for a week or two, and then we're okay. You know, we've always lived in an environment where you were okay to speak your mind. You might get your ass chewed for it, but at the end of the day, it was going to be okay. You know, like you would be heard and maybe considered, but at least you were able to get it off your chest. So yeah. And I also think that my family is super dynamic, and not in the traditional sense. I think that we all have really specific roles that we do a really good job of playing. And that's why it's so hard to lose Kaylee and Maddie, because they had really specific roles too. And so, and we're not going to fill those roles, right? They're not replaceable positions or anything like that. But yeah. So it's like, you still feel that missing, right? You know,
Because it's not just like her kids. Like, I know a lot of people don't know this because it's neither here nor there, but it still matters when it comes to like the impact, so to say. I don't know. Is she the youngest? One of the younger Goncalves girls had kids. And I'm pretty sure that am I wrong on this? I'm pretty sure she had a kid already before Kaylee died. And she was the younger one. I'm pretty sure it's like the one that's going off to college right now. So that's also like a little kid who got to like know their aunt, and then like the aunt was taken from them, because I'm pretty sure the child was already alive at this point in time. So there is like just a lot of like confusion that's going to happen, because this is something that's going to like follow this family for a super long time. So I don't know how this kind of stuff works. Like as kids get older, like I wonder if people are going to still be talking about this case, like when those little kids and like Alivea's little kids are like in school and people talk about stuff.
At the end of my days, like I still feel that pain because they complimented all of us the same way that we complimented them, where Kaylee would never, ever, ever like a waitress could literally like pick up Kaylee's like bun and like spit in her hamburger and put it back down and, you know, shove it in her face. And Kaylee would just be like, thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You might want to pretend, you know, that that's true, but I don't believe you. Kaylee does not seem like the person who would just allow anything. She seemed like she was pretty outspoken. She didn't have apparently a problem going against the sorority for some financial things that they were trying to pull during the pandemic. I don't see Kaylee being that much of a freaking pushover. I highly doubt she appreciates Alivea coming out with that story, trying to make it sound as if she was just some sort of doormat. Like, I get what she's trying to do here, but that's excessive. That's excessive.
That wasn't Kaylee's role.
And I don't believe
that was maybe more mine, you know, to be like, listen, Linda. But together, we were all, you know, we were a well-rounded family together. But I think individually, sometimes you see those not so well-rounded edges. I know they exist in me. I know they exist in my dad. And I think my dad
and I are kind of similar.
Yeah, I think my dad and I are a little alike.
We are a lot alike.
But, you know, in the beginning, I did a lot of interviews and stuff, but that was never my role to play. I think that I filled that to try to give my dad, you know, a little bit of time. Basically, I felt like it was just kind of holding back those floodgates. And I realized that it wasn't.
I mean, I understand what she's trying to say here, but I also feel like a lot of that was because she was very pregnant and very hormonal and felt like she had to. Because she was in like high mother mode because of how hormonal she was from being pregnant. I feel like that probably has a lot to do with how take charge she was with the whole thing too. Because like I said in the book, they talked to them, so they got this information from them. She had Eric's information and contacted him and knew about the grub truck stuff like before they even got to Idaho that night that they like drove in from California. So I feel like a lot of that probably just has to do with the fact she was really hormonal and like her motherly instincts were like at an all time, like, you know what I mean?
Something that I would be able to handle, just because the pressure was so intense, almost immediately. And I got advice from, you know, a close family member who actually works in the media, just like a local station. And they said to me, you're going to have to control the narrative or they will. Right. And so that was kind of that deciding factor for us to.
And I mean, you can honestly take that like two different ways. Either control the narrative to make sure that only the truth gets out there, which we've not really seen happening, or, you know, control the narrative because you don't want certain things out there, which we have seen happening. So you can take it either way, I guess. Or maybe it's a mix of both.
You know, kind of speak with the media and, you know, do these interviews. It was never about, you know, clout or, you know, wanting screen time or anything like that. It was always about, you know, that advice from a trusted person, you know, in this industry saying, you got to control it or someone else will. So, yeah.
And see, honestly, that's one of the statements that really made me rethink the friendship that Steve has with JLR. Think about it.
I was very happy to put down my interview hat and be more of that that support position for my dad, you know, to bounce ideas off of. And, well, maybe don't say that. Well, what if we went about it this angle? It's not that I had any less fight in me. It was just that it was never my role to play. He's always been that position for our family. And I would never, ever, ever want to, you know, take that from him. That's his. He's earned it. He deserves it, and he's good at it. So I'm more than happy to support him in, you know, however I can.
What about, like, I haven't read the book, but I saw some interviews this week about the James Patterson book, and
I'm sorry. What do you mean you haven't read it? How many times have you been on an airplane where you could have listened to this damn on audio by now? This thing came out on the 14th. I have every excuse in the book to not be finished with that book yet. What excuse do you have? No one gave you footnotes? You're talked about quite a bit, sir. What do you mean you haven't read it? I don't believe you.
I think there's other books that have been written in docuseries and stuff. I mean,
you think?
Are you okay with those things?
You've been like a star in most of them.
I guess each one is different, but
yeah, I think it just comes down to that. Each one is different. I know that Vicki Ward, who co-wrote the James Patterson book, she, you know, reached out to us, and, you know, we earlier were kind of offered to be a larger part of that book, and we declined for, you know, whatever reasoning. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly why. But later in that writing process, she reached out to us, and so my dad and I, you know, kind of talked to her, not in a formal manner or anything, just kind of in a voice for Kaylee to give it a little bit more like lividity or, you know, vibrancy, and in more of like a fact checking manner. And
honestly, the only real like not exaggerated, but the only real like detailed story so far when it comes to Kaylee is sort of just like her relationship with Jack and like the quesadilla guy story. Honestly, I can't really think of anything else that they like put a lot of detail on. Like, they talked about her job stuff, but that's, I mean, it's pretty much all like just stuff that we sort of already had heard.
And so for me, I can respect something like that. Again, it's the floodgates. I can't hold them all back. People are going to, you know, make money off of this and monopolize it. And I can't sit here and say, you know, well, I did the media interviews because of X, Y, Z, and then get upset when someone else does. So I get it. Sometimes do I begrudge it? Maybe. But I guess it just comes down to, you know, trust your sources. And I think that goes for, you know, everything. You know, if you're getting your news from a TikToker, you know, named True Crime Bubble Waters or whatever.
I laughed so hard. And look, I'm not saying anything, okay? But I can pretty much bet that the reason why that name in specific, you know, in particular got brought up is because Autumn, that's the youngest one, right? See, I don't dig into their lives. Like, unless they've come out here and talked and I've had a reason to like know who they are, I get their names mixed up. So I know there's like two younger ones, but I'm pretty sure it's Autumn. Bubbly did like a long video digging into this girl's life. And at the time that all this stuff was going on, like, she's a minor. So that's probably why that channel out of all the channels like sticks to her head that way, because in my opinion, that's inappropriate. She was under 18, you know.
Maybe just double check the facts that are coming. But I think that in this process, I've learned that there's just a lot you got to let go. You know, there's a lot of battles. And if you pick every single one, what's going to be left of you? So I try to be strategic with the battles I pick, and the books and the, you know, docuseries, they're not a battle I'm going to pick.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people you mentioned, TikTok and the conspiracy theorists and stuff.
What is this idiot? Just the same damn thing over and over and over and over again? Like, that is annoying.
I mean, they're always going to be around.
They're gone.
in any case, in any situation. I mean, you know what I mean? They're all just waiting to pounce. So I think it's better to just not pick those battles sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some battles are, easier to let go than others, for sure, right? Like the demolition of the house. That was a hard battle to let go of. But, the book.
Can we just like remember what was going on at the time that the house was being demolished? Because as much as they wanted to, not want the house taken down, instead of being here to fight that fight, instead of having Shannon Gray maybe file something in the court, Steve and Steve Jr. went to like some island vacation, just the boys. That's what they were doing while that fight was happening.
Books or,
not the whole family. Because some people were like, oh, it's a family vacation. They deserve it. Let them go. They've been out here making a fuss about the house being torn down. And instead of being here to help that process not happen and maybe try a little bit harder, besides just coming and doing like panels on, in the media, but actually doing something in the courtroom, you go on vacation. How much does that cost? Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that you could have put into court to stop it. Injunctions could have been filed. Just a reminder.
The YouTubers or the TikTokers, and a lot of them are very, positive, but, those are little battles. It pissed me off for a minute, but I think that I just realized, like, does this individual have, a life that I, envy or aspire for? And if that answer was no, then I try not to concern myself with, the content being spewed out there. Easier said than done. I mean, clearly.
They got married, or are they just still dating? I haven't checked. The news came out of them being together, and after that I was, I didn't really care to like check on an update. That'd be kind of surprising if they got married before the sentencing, like in the middle of all of this. I'll have to check here in a minute.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. What about the sentencing? Like, I know you're getting ready for it. Where are you at in that process?
So my husband had to have a heart-to-heart with me because I was really conflicted, and I'll explain, kind of what I'm conflicted about, right? So originally, the victim impact statements would have been made after a jury had come to a decision on guilt, but before the sentencing. In that scenario, my victim impact statement would be directed towards the jury and the decision that they had ahead of them for the sentencing. So that's for me, a very pointed goal. I can come up with something like that. That would also be after a trial had occurred. We had seen the evidence, the exhibits, arguments. So we would, be, armed with that knowledge, right? The secondary, reality that could have existed here is a plea deal was made, but the sentencing wasn't made. And the sentencing would be made by the judge. So I would be able to make a pointed, statement towards the judge who had a decision to make. But that also didn't occur because the sentencing was tied into the plea deal. And
hold on. Sorry, my kid let my dog back in and he pushed my camera because, the dog came in here all crazy. Okay.
And will not be argued for a lesser sentence. So, there's a little bit of a existential crisis that exists. That's like, well, then what the hell am I even doing? Right? It's not going to make a difference as far as sentencing goes. I feel like I can cry for 1,000 years and still never be able to truly articulate the impact that this loss has had on not just me, but my husband, my children. You know, I could probably go on for the rest of my life and still have more to say.
I sort of understand like what she means by this too, because it sort of just feels like it doesn't really have a direction. The whole point though is to basically just write a letter about your pain for what happened. So I understand like where her thought process is, but I don't really feel like a jury or a judge deciding anything honestly puts weight on the impact this has already had on you. So again, like I understand her thought process, but I also feel like that's irrelevant to the loss, like the direction that it's being aimed, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to just be from here. It's not really supposed to have like an aim. You know what I mean? Like the whole point is for it to be from the victim's family's point of view about the situation itself and the loss of someone that they loved, with it not really having like a target, so say. I don't know if that makes sense.
So I kind of had to switch gears because the purpose for me isn't so pointed, right? It's a little vague. And I started writing, you know, like,
I mean, which I understand where your point is, but what happened is that they lost their child. They lost their sister. They lost their granddaughter. You don't really, I mean, I understand how some people would in a statement, and I've heard plenty of them read to where they get into the specifics about the wounds and all the things, because in their minds, them putting it on a piece of paper, the 52 times that you with a knife, okay? Like, I get that. But that still doesn't really go when it comes to who's making the decision on the punishment, because that's still just like a fact of the case. That's still just like a fact of what happened. So I feel like they need the information, but I don't feel like the impact or the statement itself should change the importance of it, or maybe even the meaning of it. It shouldn't change just because we're at this point. Like, it's going to be the same impact. Like, regardless of what ends up happening, you're still like no answers and lives lost. That's like not going to change regardless.
3 different types of speeches. You know, one was almost like a funeral speech, like, you know, an ode to Kaylee and Maddie. And then one was more so directed towards, you know, like that raw heartbreak of, you know, speaking to them throughout this whole process and, you know, giving them in some semblance a goodbye of like a close to this chapter. And then the third.
Oh, thank you for the $49.99, Kim. Thank you so much. Hi, Jules. We are here for your reactions, deep dives, and opinions. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
The type of speech that I was writing was directed at the defendant himself. And I mean, that's what I
see. That part right there, that part I understand. So if you're wanting to make your statement at the defendant like themselves, regardless of the situation, be it this one or another one, I still feel like whoever's making the decision, if that's your goal, then that part shouldn't change either. I guess I'm just trying to like wade through her thought process on it, because like I get wanting the details, but I just don't feel like the target changing matters, because there shouldn't have been one really.
I eventually went with. So my speech isn't about the process, the court, the lawyers, the judge. It's not even really about Kaylee or Maddie, because Kaylee and Maddie know they've been with me every single step of the way, you know, and I refuse to.
So what's her speech going to be about if it's not about Kaylee and Maddie? If it's not going to be about the court or about the investigation, what's it going to be about then? Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day. All I know is that regardless of what gets said, it's going to be a sad day. It's going to be a hard day. It's going to be an emotional day. I mean, honestly, I don't know what her speech is going to sound like just based off of the way that she's describing things. It's a bit strange to say it's not about Maddie or Kaylee either. So I guess we'll see.
Get up there and further re-victimize myself over and over and over for a defendant who does not give a damn. no amount of tears, no amount of, tear jerkers, heart, nothing is ever going to make him feel anything at best. And at worst, he enjoys it. And I'm just not gonna do it.
Yeah, he hasn't really shown any even small sign of emotion.
I get her thought process on that. For personal experience, I understand her thought process on that. But this next portion, I can't not keep relaying the fact that he is autistic. He's already been described as not being able to really show a lot of emotions, like outwardly. We've seen the way he speaks. He's very much like a computer. Whenever he responds to stuff, he's very detailed. So again, I don't know, because of how I feel about the lack of evidence and how things are just shady as shit. Okay. I don't know how much weight, again, that I can put on this like monotone opinion that a lot of people have, because, we consider everything.
None.
So,
truly, I don't think he's capable of empathy, of compassion, of, I don't think he's capable of love. I truly, truly believe that. So me professing my love for my sisters isn't going to do shit. It's just not. I get it.
She doesn't really know that.
Is your dad, do you know if your dad's going to go? Because I remember he was saying that he wasn't thinking of it. He wasn't planning on. I think he was emotional after the plea deal.
We all have a diva moment here or there. Okay. And I won't even, I'm joking. I'm not calling it a diva moment. Yes. So we will be attending. Right now, I know for sure myself, my mom, and my dad are going to be making speeches. I think my brother is as well. There's other members of our family who definitely wanted to, but they were not statutory victims of the crime. So they were not able to. So we were bound by parents, step-parents, siblings, and grandparents.
Yeah.
Oh, so you like a best friend or someone like that can't?
Nope. I'm not even.
So Jack's not going to be able to get up and say anything. Emily isn't going to be able to get up and say anything. That's honestly kind of sad, considering how much attention has been put like on so many people that are just friends. I mean, I get it, because that's like where the protective order and stuff lies, and where like the whole like victims thing was when it came to the seating stuff. But it's still just kind of sad, I guess.
And like in lieu of. So, my two younger sisters don't want to go onto the stand, and I don't blame them at all. I support that. I support whatever they want to do, not that I support that specifically. And so we asked if my aunt could in lieu of that, and we were told no, because she wasn't a statutory victim.
I guess to me, it just seems like, why not? Like, if he's already pled guilty and this is finally the family's chance to have their moment after all this time, like, what's the downside?
Yeah, we've definitely had feelings like that. But you pick your battles.
Yeah.
That's a battle we've lost. We can always come back to it later, but we're not going to change their minds by kicking and screaming.
Right.
And we don't have any.
Wouldn't that be interesting? That would be interesting if one of them actually like stood up and gave a statement. That would be wild. Did y'all know that Dylan went to Xana's memorial? I didn't know that until this book. And again, I can only like assume it's true because they spoke to the Chapins that were there too. They did interviews with the Sigma Chi guys, which were all there too. And they've talked to, Emily and Hunter and all them that were there too. So really the only person who's really sort of like MIA and everything so far has been Bethany. Like Dylan's story keeps constantly changing, even though again, we haven't heard directly from her. But everything that's coming out in court and everything that's being talked about in this book and everything that's being talked about by the people that were there, nothing has stayed consistent. But one of the other very consistent things is Bethany's silence and her inability to show up anywhere and wanting to just never come back across state line. And again, the simple fact that she is apparently the only one that it says in the PCA can remember seeing Ethan and Xana at the party. Now, I know that we have other people now that have come out and said other things about them being there too. But when it comes to Ethan and Xana's timeline, Bethany is the only other person for that. And she apparently has exculpatory information, and she was fighting coming back over state line. Fixler said she wasn't at the hearing. I find that interesting behavior. I don't see how you couldn't.
Anything else but kicking and screaming right now.
In terms of the like Dylan and the surviving roommates, do you stay in touch with them at all, or
listen to this shit?
No. So I've actually only reached out to them one time in my whole life, and it was because I knew that they were roommates. So it was literally on November 13th as everything was unfolding, and I messaged them on Instagram and I said, hey, we can't get a hold of Kaylee. Like, I'm sure her phone is just dead. Can you have her call us? Neither of those messages were replied to. I've never reached out again. They've never reached out to me as far as I know.
I'm sorry. Neither one of them responded back to Alivea ever. Explain that. Explain how the two of them just don't say a damn word about anything. Is that not odd that neither one of them responded back to Kaylee's sister? I find that extremely strange.
And it is what it is. They don't owe me anything. I didn't know them personally.
They owe y'all a lot of answers.
So yeah, it is what it is. They're not guilty of anything. They're not on trial here.
You don't really know that either.
They don't owe me even a conversation.
Yeah, they do.
So
I don't care. Yeah, they do.
I wish them well, and I will always, defend them, and I will always support them. And, I think that's what Kaylee and Maddie would want.
How do you know that? Are you not paying attention to the actual facts going on here? I don't understand this dynamic here. But then again, I also don't know if it's a tactic, because I've been like super trying to think about, again, the relationship that Steve has with JLR and the ulterior motives and behind in the shadows work I think Steve might be doing in some cases, in some senses. Because I've questioned this too. Are they just coming out and saying this stuff to the public about not being mad at the roommates? Because we've seen the things that Steve has said in private conversations when it comes to those two. She owes y'all a lot of answers. Let's quit pretending. They both do.
And that's that,
Yeah, I was thinking about them more at the last hearing, and I always think about you guys and the other parents, but sometimes I forget about how I'm sure it's not easy for them too,
Right. Yeah, I think that the level of like trauma and PTSD that has to exist because of something like that is enormous. And I wouldn't wish it on, most of my enemies. But
most of my
they've
enemies
had to weather a storm and walk through their grief silently and take every last bit on the chin.
They didn't have to. They didn't have to. They didn't. Even before there was a damn gag order, before Bryan Kohberger's arrest and there being a gag order, the roommates did not have to be silent. Someone made that decision, and somehow along the way, people just forgot that they even existed for a while. No, ma'am. They did not have to be silent. They're choosing that. There's no way that at this point, after all this time, neither one of them has cracked even a little, regardless of what any channels try to say. Nothing has ever come out of their mouths. Ever. Why? Why? What threats were made for them not to say anything? They have completely different views of this entire situation. Like I've mentioned before, it's like everything gets split down the middle. It's Dylan, Maddie, Kaylee. It's Bethany, Xana, Ethan. That's how it's been like the whole time. I don't understand how there's not more questions for that. If these were boys, no one would be being like this. The simple fact that girls this age and younger have done crazy shit like this. Are you aware that there was just a bunch of 5th grade girls? Pretty sure it was all girls that were just put like in juvie for trying to put together a murder for hire plot. 5th graders. 5th graders. Let's not forget the Slender Man stuff. Look how young they were. They're both out now. Okay. The other one got out a while back, and now they just approved something with the other one that was still in there. I don't know all the details. I just know the headline. This kind of stuff. Okay. When it comes to females being capable of things, very possible. So how are we supposed to just be okay with no answers to anything, a story that constantly changes, and now Dylan, who y'all are claiming is the only living person to have seen the assailant, is admitting in so many things in these court documents to having like night terrors and bad dreams about people chasing her and hallucinating and all kinds of stuff. And we're supposed to just think that we shouldn't be asking any questions about this crazy shit that y'all are telling us? If you're not asking questions and you're not paying attention, you can feel however you want to about the person that is in jail right now, but to not ask any questions when it comes to the facts here, you're lying to yourself. Because there's just no. You can't write I Know What You Did Last Summer or Final Destination or anything else in that, genre any better than that. Okay? Come on now.
Be prepared to, take the stand, to be brutalized on the stand, to have their texts nitpicked and their actions questioned.
Why aren't you questioning that? 8 hours of them being on social media and taking photos and taking videos and doing edits and who knows what else before deleting those things. Why are you not questioning that? I just, okay.
Typos used against them. And
that is the least of their worries, ma'am. That stupid little typo is the least that we care about. Okay. You know what we're curious about because y'all should be just as curious. What were they taking photos of? What were they taking videos of? Why were they doing so in the middle of the night instead of calling 911 after checking all of the snap maps and all of the locations and getting no answers and having all these things happen? Y'all's reaction to this is just wild.
Last thing I ever want to do is add to that grief or burden. It's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah, lies are pretty heavy.
And just one of my last questions, I was wondering, you've been such a fighter, you and your dad and your mom too, but just through this whole process, every step of the way, trying to advocate for Kaylee, trying to push the prosecution to do what you guys felt was right. I mean, every step of the way, even the beginning, pushing the police, it's just been fight, fight, fight. I'm just wondering, do you think you've had a chance personally to grieve or to really, have you processed it all yet? I mean, do you think you've accepted that Kaylee's gone, or do you think that that's going to come after this all sort of dies down?
Yeah. So I think specifically for my dad and I in the family, we're still waiting for that other shoe to drop. And I think it's because we had mentally prepared for this trial. So it's kind of like, block it out, block it out, block it out, block it out. We have a war ahead of us. Like, we're going to get through this war because I don't have time to take off right now. I don't have time to let off the gas right now. Like, we're doing this. So when, and my dad and I had just sort of started talking together about what life looks like after trial and how, we're both going to struggle with that new normal. Because when I mean every single day, my life has revolved around this, I mean it. And my dad too.
So.
Even when you're not thinking about it, you're thinking about it. And so to have that rug pulled when we were just starting to accept that, hey, we might have to face that music soon. And it was a good right step to start walking in that direction, to immediately, orchestra right in front of you. It's definitely thrown me and my dad into a little bit more of a back to that immediate shock right after it happened.
Is a lift, that's for sure.
And yeah, I'm not there. And I thought I'd be there after the trial, after, the sentencing, after this and that. And I don't know when I will be now. And I don't know, when my dad will be now. And it's a little scary to not know what your grief looks like day to day to day when you thought that you had it kind of checked in a little bit. I remember that first year after, I was, pretty gentle with myself. I didn't know what might be triggering, what might not.
Plus, you were also like fresh from having a baby, so the hormones were really high. That accounts for a lot.
How much downtime I might need, trying to just be gentle with myself. because sometimes you're so taken aback by the things that like hit you the most, and it's unexpected, and it's scary to not have control of your emotions like that, at least for someone like me or for someone like my dad. You know, we don't really wear our hearts on the sleeve, publicly, at least. You know, with family, of course, it's different, but and I kind of feel like I'm back to those early days again, where it's like, am I going to be okay? Is this going to be a slow progression for me, or is it going to be all together, all at once? One day I'm okay, and the next day I'm not. Is it going to be once it's unsealed? Is it going to be after we sit down with prosecutors and get, you know, told the story? Is it going to be after we get this or that? Or is it going to be when my daughter turns 3? And for whatever reason, that's the day. So yeah, definitely have not.
It's pretty specific. I mean, I get what she's saying, but that's really specific.
Fully been living in the reality of Kaylee and Maddie being gone. And I excused it by saying that, you know, I was doing the brave thing and toughening myself up for trial. But truly, I think it was just a way to live in that denial for a little longer. And then to not have that option anymore feels really raw. And I imagine my dad, you know, I don't want to speak for him, but he probably feels similar in a lot of ways. You know, maybe different in some. I think that his grief and his emotions in general manifest a little more as like anger. I think that that's his defense mechanism.
Me too.
Where I think mine is more, you know, avoidance, no contact, kind of, you know, switched on the emotions. But
I do some of that too.
yeah, I think that all of the families still have, you know, maybe a ways to go. Some, of course, us, maybe more than others. Maybe that just is because we're not very well-rounded, or, you know, because we lived in that denial for so long. I don't really know, but yeah, I don't really know if I answered your question either.
No, you did. I think you've just been so focused on the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
we were expecting a
my
trial.
dad and I buried our heads in the sand a little bit to the emotional side of it by just digging as deep as we could into, you know, the legal side of it. And, you know, I guess it is what it is. You know, we will have to face this, and, you know, we'll do it. We'll do it together. We'll do it with our family. Yeah, I have a long way to go, for sure.
You mentioned getting the full story from the prosecution. After the sentencing, I mean, do you want to sit down with them and hear everything they know?
Yeah. I think that that's, you know, something that we've been told from the very, very, very beginning, before an arrest was even made. You know, we'll sit down at the end of this, and, you know, we'll be able to talk candidly and say XYZ, blah, 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 blah. So I think that that's something
they promised them that.
We are obviously very eager for, to the point where if the gag order is lifted on the 17th, tomorrow, I've already reset a meeting that I said is cancelable if it doesn't happen. Because, yeah, I think it's important. I think that, you know, a lot of cases are based off of circumstantial evidence, and that doesn't make them bad or weak cases. This particular situation had...
You just complained that they didn't have anything, that everything was weak, based off of what Thompson just said at the hearing. See what I mean? Like, I know that they have to be understanding the way that they sound so 180'd. And I know, again, that this is like emotional for them, but they cannot stop and act like they're not also asking questions on top of saying stuff like this. She's going to act like this is, you know, so circumstantial, but then she also just called it extremely weak. So which one is it? Is there weight because there's all these things, or is it weak because Thompson doesn't know anything? It can't be both.
I don't know, physical evidence with the DNA being left at the scene, but I know there is so much circumstantial evidence that exists that didn't make its way to the, you know, to the public docs. And it just goes back to that, you know, almost like that grief where it's like, I don't know exactly what's going to hit me the hardest, right? Sometimes I'm totally fine. And, you know, when Kaylee's death certificate came in, you know, I trudged through. I was okay. Like, obviously you have emotions around it, but I was able to put those to the side. But when that PCA came out, I was down for days. And obviously you don't expect that. That should have been, oh my gosh, there's a solid case here. They have someone in custody. He's being extradited.
The PCA is where the majority of people started asking questions, because nothing in it connects, and everything that they started producing in way of evidence was literally taking things away from the PCA. So much so that the prosecution themselves came out and called it irrelevant. Yet they basically just repeated itself, repeated it again at the hearing after basically acting like it was no longer of any use.
And I feel that way about the evidence, and I feel so strongly about it in making my victim impact statement, because I feel almost cheated in a way to not have this information, because I'm like, you're setting me up to have so many regrets.
See, she's sitting here saying that it's so strong because there's all this circumstantial stuff, but then she's again admitting that she doesn't have any of this. So then how can you say that? You just said that they lied to you when they told you to trust them, that they had all of this weight, that they had all this evidence. You just said that that was bullshit. I hope that after this, they realize that they've got the time to like breathe a minute, and they realize how they sound. I hope that she goes back in and listens to herself and realizes, I've got a lot more questions than I want to believe I do. I need to maybe pay attention to that. The back and forth is wild to me, but I get it. I get it, but I'm on the outside, so I can say that. I can say, you need to stop and rewind your own words and pay attention to what you're saying to yourself, because you're not wrong with the things that you're saying, but you've got to pay attention, because you're wanting to hold on to this hope of something, and you're letting that hope overtake the questions that you have that are what everyone else is out here asking. It can't be weak and have all this circumstantial stuff that makes it to where you are so convinced in what your statement's going to say, but then also say that they don't have the information. Like it's so back and forth.
Because right now I think that, this piece of the information really, really hurt me. Like the fact that he also bought a sharpener, right? And that to some people isn't anything, right? And I understand that. But to me, that shit hurts my soul, right?
And she's right. I don't understand why that part bothers her so much. I understand what they're claiming that the weapon was, but not really, because they haven't really validated that. But I have several knife sharpeners. My dad has several knife sharpeners, several different kinds of knife sharpeners. He even has like the old, like real sharp squared blocks that you run the blade over. That's not abnormal. So she's right. To me, it seems like a normal thing, especially since the purchase was so many months ahead of time. But I can also see where she'd be in her mind thinking about that sharpener and maybe its potential use from like right before it was go time, because, in her head, she feels like this is the way that it went.
Right. So it's like, how many other little things like that exist that can help give me a more complete view of my impact that I can then articulate into words? Because I've had so many regrets this whole process, right? I mean, so many. But I didn't want to do it this time. I didn't want to have regrets, and I didn't want to, feel like I left any cards behind. I'm not holding any punches here. So it's hard to do that when, I don't even have a full hand that I'm playing with. Like, you guys are playing poker and I'm playing Uno. I'm going to do my best, but I damn well know when it all comes out and when I hear it, it's going to be the smallest damn thing that I'm like, I wish I would have confronted him with that. But we've tried. We're still.
And see, that's again, like a lot of like the opposite of what she just said. So either he's an unemotional robot who's not going to care what you confront him with, so you find it pointless, like you just said, or you're going to wish that you had everything so that you can confront him because you want him to feel something from it. Like, it can't be both. It just can't. It can't be both.
Trying. I won't give up until there's no other option. But it's not looking good. It's not looking like we're going to have any more information than we do right now.
Yeah, I guess I always thought about the gag order with like in terms of the press getting information, but I sort of forgot that it's also the way that you guys can find out the details
Yeah.
too, because the gag order has also applied to you.
Yes. So we aren't covered by the gag order, but the people who know the information are covered by the gag order from talking to us even.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, that's another thing that's really bothered the crap out of me ever since the like gag got lifted by the judge. All of these mainstream people have no freaking idea what's been going on with this gag order. Everyone out here who pays attention to things knows damn well that what she just said about this being the gag order and this being the families and this being the people allowed to have information and them literally being where that wall was put, they're all sitting there like, now that the gag order is over, what can you tell us? What do you know? Nothing. I'm surprised. Why? Why are you surprised? That's how it's been the entire time. The families were never under a gag order, literally ever. Every interview, the 3 that we watched with the Goncalveses, even Brian Itten, Banfeld even, what? What do you mean? So y'all just literally proved to everyone that y'all had no idea what was going on the entire time by asking them that stupid question. In secession, like they all had like no idea. I'm sorry, but then again, Jesse Weber called the car a Toyota, so can I be surprised? Not really.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard bits and pieces, right? You know, people come to us and say, you know, this, that, blah, 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 and of course we're appreciative for that. They help put a bigger view, but you can't trust that information all the time, because sometimes it's false, you know, and it's not someone's fault that it's false. But it would just be nice to walk in just so confident, just so knowledged, and be able to feel like in that moment, what I'm saying right now, what I'm doing right now is the very, very best that I have to offer. No excuses, no, oh, well, I wish this or I wish that, you know, I love to make excuses for myself. So to be able to like remove that option, to just be like, no, like you're gonna write, you know, sit down and you're going to write this, and this is the best that you can give. No, well, if I'd had that, or if I,
it's honestly supposed to, again, just be like how you feel. You're not writing this for an award. You're not writing this to get a certificate of good job. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more unnecessary things going on in her mind when it comes to this victim statement. And I don't know if it's because of like how Steve feels about stuff or was feeling about stuff or what, but I feel like they're very topsy-turvy about the way that they are when it comes to like the way this is supposed to be going. It's literally just supposed to be something heartfelt from like yourself, not all this extra stuff. Thank you for the $5, Layla, and thank you for the $10 super sticker. Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. This one's almost over, and then we're going to watch the one that Steve did earlier tonight.
Period. Would have been nice. And the dream's not dead, but she's on life support.
That was it for that one. Okay, so I also have the one that Steve did earlier tonight. Now, I'm going to go check the Goncalves family page real quick to see to see if they've said anything. Because I don't know if they've said anything yet, and people in the chat have been saying, this is the right one, have been saying that since Trump made a comment about the case, that they've been contacted and given like more information. So I want to go ahead and open this up and see if they've made a statement before we open this interview. Every time I open Facebook, it freezes for like a microsecond. There's just too much going on Facebook. They haven't posted anything about getting any new information. They just posted this yesterday, whenever the statement was made. And it says, I definitely do not want to get into politics at all. So I hesitate hesitated even posting this, but wow. Absolutely shocked. Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Ethan, you have always mattered so much. You are so loved, and your nature, your light, your entire being is so bright and visible. You guys did this. You guys deserve every last ounce of recognition for this. It doesn't say who wrote it, but we know that certain people have access to the page, but they haven't posted any like details of anything that they have. So this is the interview that I saw that was done by Steve right before this live started, about an hour or so. I saw that it was posted about an hour before this live started, and I'm wondering if this is where he's going to mention that. I haven't listened to this. I just recorded it real quick, did the thingy-mabobber that I had to do, but I have no idea what he said. So we're going to both be listening. You know, some of y'all probably heard this, but I haven't heard any of it yet. Is it going to play? Did I mess it up?
This guest is currently on his way to Idaho for the hearing tomorrow, where he will be making a statement as he faces the man who murdered his daughter. Joining me now is the father of Kaylee Goncalves, Steve Goncalves. Steve, I don't even know where to begin. You must have so many emotions going into tomorrow, but let me get your reaction.
Might be moving his
to
foot or
what
something,
you
but his
heard
whole
there
body
from
is
President
like
Trump,
shaky.
that he believes that Kohberger should have to explain himself and why all of this happened. What do you think of that?
Well, the president is the art of the deal. He has a book on that, and I think that's exactly what our family felt like. Was we have one moment, one time to actually get this right, to set a statement,
like a little bit of
and
an echo.
You know, get him to maybe show a little remorse, but beyond that, at least give us the facts of what happened. You know, pin yourself down, say something kind of evidence that makes it very obvious that you are part of this case, and you can back that up, and then you know, do the right thing. You're making a plea deal, and you're making a deal. It's not like a plea demandment. You're doing a deal, so deal.
Yeah. Is that what you think the other families, would they like to hear from him as well? And have you talked with any of them about how everyone's feeling going into tomorrow?
I've talked with many of the family members. I'm actually with family members right now from Xana's family. So yeah, we all have the curiosity. We all have our limits of what we want to hear. But
it's nice to know
I know that we all want this to go away. And the easiest way for it to go away is if this person during his plea gives out information that only he would know, and then we don't have to play these conspiracy games. I mean, it's a deal. You got to negotiate, and you know, some people don't even understand the most simplest transactions, and I think that's become obvious, and that's why they don't want the media, you know, exposing a poorly brokered deal.
Wow. So it sounds like for you, this would be a moment of closure to confirm that indeed you know what happened to your daughter. And I imagine the other families probably feel that way. I understand, Steve, you are planning to speak tomorrow. Anything you can tell us about your statements tomorrow?
It won't just be me. It'll be my daughter and my sons and my wife. We're really trying to, you know.
You say sons? As in two? Maybe it's just, maybe he didn't mean to say that. Because it's just Steve Jr., right? Like, am I missing something? I feel like he just made a mistake. Sit
this through, and what Trump's already done is made a difference, because they came out and they told us some of the facts that they've been hiding from us. So we got to rewrite.
He did say it. One more time.
It won't just be me. It'll be my daughter and my sons and my wife. We're really trying to, you know, sit this through, and what Trump's already done is made a difference, because they came out and they told us some of the facts that they've been hiding from us. So we got to rewrite some of those statements to make sure that our last statements are the most accurate as they possibly can be, and that's what we were really going for.
Okay, so maybe tomorrow in some of their statements we will hear some of the things that they've finally been told. Because again, they haven't posted anything on the page. I don't know. Some people are saying maybe son-in-law, maybe bringing Jack D. The problem is that the court won't allow them to speak. It has to be direct siblings, grandparents, and parents. Those are the only 3. They're not allowing aunts, uncles, friends, boyfriends, none of the things, which is sad. Like, think about it, because like Jake, Maddie's boyfriend, can't get up and give a statement. That's really sad. That's some boo-boo. Thank you for the $1.99, Sheila. Appreciate your hard work, Jules. Love your hair. Thank you. I braided it and slept in it, and sometimes it just finally doesn't look so ridiculous. So maybe tomorrow, they'll say some things in their statements that are these details. And if y'all know of him doing any other late night interviews tonight, like, did he run to Banfield with some information? Because he usually will go over to her Drop Dead Serious one, or maybe Enton. Let me know. I'll look around too to see if he said anything else, because that's interesting. They did promise, but the timing is convenient, because again, like in the Megan Boss case, Jennifer's mom went to the White House. She spoke to Trump, told Trump what was going on, and about how the guy that did all the stuff with Megan, hiding her body and everything, was an illegal person. And 2 days later, he's getting cuffed up by ICE in Chicago at a market. And then she also sent me a message, and I'll have an update video on that case out tomorrow. She sent me a message that the White House is the one that gave the go-ahead for his arrest. So Trump's invested in a lot of these cases, which is super interesting. I find it really interesting. But the big thing that I meant to say earlier about the Megan Boss case, which if you saw my community post earlier, you know already. Somehow they got a hold of information that's not accurate about Megan being detached right here. And the New York Post and like all of these articles are sharing that information, And Miss Jennifer said, no, that's not the case whatsoever. So she actually recorded like a little 3-minute video today that I'm going to add to the video about how this is incorrect. And this is what the coroner report says. But it's interesting that Trump heard her story for all of like 2 seconds. And then the White House gave the go ahead to take him down. He should have never been let out. It's just insane to me.
So we're rewriting those up, and tomorrow, stay tuned. You're going to hear directly from our family on how we feel about this and what we think of him.
I think a lot of people are expecting that Kohberger receives
I'm so curious.
4 life sentences. Steve, is that enough for you? Is that enough for the families to make up for this?
No, you can't make up for my daughter with a loser's life, even if it's extended in adult care. She was a shining star, and he's not even close. He's not even in the ballpark of possibilities for us. So we can live with it. You know, we want to move on. We can live with this. But again, you know, we've always wanted what was best for our daughter. And we don't want to keep living this for the next 10, 15 years with conspiracies. So get it right. Hopefully he'll man up and he'll give some explanations and doesn't just give one-word answers to just get us out of that courtroom. You know, we've waited for 2.5 years. We dragged it to the other side of the state. We did everything for this case to be fair, and then they bailed out at the last minute. Nobody even wants to hold him accountable at all.
Real quickly, Steve, before we go, maybe you can tell us a little bit, just what you want the world to know about your daughter, Kaylee.
What I want the world to know is my daughter was just like any other guy's daughter. She's beautiful, loved, and fathers, we got to protect our girls. We got to go to bat for our girls and our sons, and we got to put our foot down. We can't crawl up in a ball and cry. I mean, that's something we can do for privately, but eventually we got to be the fathers and the mothers, and we got to stand forward and say enough. We got to protect our kids, and we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to take this weak-minded, pathetic delivery of half justice in backroom plea deals. You know, we got to do better than that.
I mean, I agree with him when it comes to the way that this whole thing went, because there's like no answers to a damn thing. I want to know the details that they have. Because to me, I feel like it's probably specific to Kaylee. I don't feel that they could just give, details about the other 3 victims to them. So I'm going to assume all of the families were contacted with information. But it'll be interesting if they actually do release some information in their statements, because they can't be told that they can't say anything. Like if they start giving out like case fact, the judge can't stop them. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting. It'll be a hard day tomorrow. Because again, regardless of how you feel, it's going to be difficult watching all those people get up there and cry from their heart. Okay? Because these people are gone. It's going to really suck tomorrow. Let me see if I can find anything else that he might have said. I'm not seeing anything when it comes to him coming out and talking. There's a lot of people coming out with like stories about stuff. Possible, you know, him having a target on his back, him having limited access to things. They apparently, Brian Inton and a couple other people like took a tour of some prison in Idaho where they think that he's going to be sent to, just based on logistics. But I don't see anything. They probably, honestly, for the best, it's for the best that they are not coming out here and saying anything about the things that they were told. You know, I feel like tomorrow they're going to say what they need to say, and then the information can come out. And I'm pretty sure that at some point he's going to end up, you know, on an interview saying whatever he was told. But it'll be interesting to finally get to see some of the discovery. I know they're not going to let anything come out that they don't want to come out, but it's going to be really interesting to at least see the stuff that they're going to let us see. Tomorrow's going to suck, though. I guess his parents don't get to make a statement because they're not like victims' families technically, right? But I wonder, like, if they could, like, if they felt like he was actually guilty, which I'm not really getting that vibe, at least not from like the stuff that's in this book that was apparently said. And again, like, these are interviews with people that know the Kohbergers and like obviously Emily and Hunter and, you know, all of that. So again, you got to take it with like a grain of salt. But it's just interesting. The whole thing is just an interesting, I feel like, social experiment, if you want to be so for real. Just a bunch of crazy stuff. It's just a bunch of crazy stuff. Now, okay. Tomorrow at 9:00 in the morning, their time, is the sentencing. I'm Central Time because I'm Texas time. So I will be, it's like 10 o'clock my time. So 9:00 my time, which is probably the time that I'm going to go live in the morning. That's probably the time I'm going to go live. Just so we can sort of like speak correctly. Watching, not washing, watching social media to see what people are saying. You know, there's going to be cameras out front. I'm going to have to be careful because the last time for the hearing, Associated Press UK copyright struck me for not even like a portion of the video that I even like shown anything. It was like one of the cameras whenever we were switching back and forth to try to find where Maddie's mom was going to be out talking, like where the lawyer for her parents or the representative for her mom and stepdad were going to be out talking. And it was like the portion where it's just like a podium with like people walking around in the background, not like the big stairs, but like another section where the camera's like jolted off to another direction real quick. That's the portion that they copyright struck me for. Like I had to go in and edit it out for it to like leave my video alone. And like, it wasn't even anyone talking. It was just podium. Like what? So I have to be careful because they could come after me and be dumb. Oh, I heard some things about that today in the background when it comes to Jumpsuit Pablo and the stuff that he's out here saying. I will just say this. When it comes to people that have served time in prison for being bad people, and they have consistently showed that their behaviors really haven't changed that much, and I've known about Jumpsuit Pablo for years now, they don't deserve a platform. Especially whenever they then use that platform to basically further intensify an already intense situation. I'll say it that way. There's at least 3 people right now that I'm being told are being talked to when it comes to certain threats and things that are being made, and I'm being told he's one of them. Because of a certain video and then another like response video that he made when it comes to what Bryan might like encounter. He has made a lot of comments, and he has like gang affiliations. Like I just watched a video like a few months ago where he like got jumped and needed like protection from like some other gang. Pretty sure that was him. I've known about him for a while. So yeah, lots of things being said, lots of threats being made. That's why Brian Itten's talking about how people are talking about how Bryan Kohberger is going to have this big target on his back, which is another just like interesting part of this. If he would have, let's say, gone to trial and been found guilty and put on death row, he would have like been protected from Gen Pop, from people that could like take him out. Because all we've been hearing about him, and we can see him, he's tall, but he's not very big. His wrists are pretty thin. Like, I don't see how what they're claiming he did is possible, given the things that we know. Not just that, but the dexterity issues, the fact that whenever he was going to that boxing course, none of it was about like competitive training. It was literally just about like staying healthy and like using it for mental health reasons. And the Jesse Harris guy has come out and said that like 1.5 million times. Doing the whole like life thing, that like puts you literally where like all these scary people are. And he's not an idiot. Like he knows that people are going to test him. Like he's had to have already heard all the stories. So he's kind of putting himself like in a more dangerous situation too with this whole thing, which is an interesting dynamic to the whole process. Because of what he's being accused of doing and what he has now pled guilty to. And now he's just going to go like in general population? Or are they going to try to put him somewhere else because he's autistic? I'm not like autistic, but because he's autistic. We know he's autistic. He's been autistic, like diagnosed since before, according to the book, before the whole like, H situation happened, there was already that diagnosis. So are they going to end up putting him like somewhere else because he has these other diagnoses? Because that's just another like layer to this. Because now there's that possibility. Because of also things that have been being said because of Jumpsuit Pablo and like other people. So I don't know. It's all very interesting for sure. There's been a lot of that drama going around. JLR is part of all of that too. He's been saying that kind of stuff for like a super long time. He'll post stuff on Twitter about like the horrible, disgusting things that he hopes happens, basically, to Bryan Kohberger while he's in jail. And I'm just like, have you forgotten what it's like to be in prison? Because I'm pretty sure that you have a good enough memory to remember. Thank you for joining, Lisa Wilson. I'd like to thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's just so much. It's just so much. So we'll see what ends up happening, but it's good. I'm honestly relieved that the family was given more information today. That's fair. They should have been given information a long time ago. It doesn't excuse direct admitted lies that were made, but it was never acceptable that the families didn't have information. So maybe after getting some information today, they'll be able to walk into what's going to end up happening tomorrow, maybe feeling a little bit different. I just can't wait for all the facts. We need to just get to the evidence. I need to know where they got this whole like trust me bro persona after then standing up and admitting that they can't directly put him at 1122, that there's no direct evidence, that they can't prove this, that they don't know what this is, that they can't say this. Like, what can you tell us? Because even in your own evidence, the things that you're trying to say are like proof of things are not really proof of anything. The only concrete really here is the DNA. And they've wanted to shred the crap out of everything to do with the DNA from the very beginning. From the Don Daniel search warrant, we saw it then. And then it got down to the point to where both sides had to basically come up with the narrative they could live with and sleep with that night. And then feed that narrative to someone who no longer even works for the police department. It won't be long after tomorrow that I'll release the information, the actual like forwarded email information that was sent to me regarding Brett Payne no longer working at Moscow. I just can't believe everything that came with this case. Wild. So wild. But I will see you guys tomorrow, bright and early. Yeah, 9 o'clock in the morning. And we'll hang out for about an hour or so before things get started, but just be prepared. There's probably going to be quite a few breaks to calm people's nerves in between people being called up to make statements. It's going to be a long day. I don't feel like they're going to try to rush this. I think they're going to let it go. But it'll be interesting to see who does come up and speak. I doubt we're going to see either one of the roommates. Dylan showed up apparently, though, to the actual like guilty plea thing. So we'll see. We shall see. Let me go ahead and run through all these color stuffs real quick. Thank you for being here for so long, Lisa. Thank you for the $10. Say it louder. Thank you so much, Kim, for the $49.99. That's amazing. Thank you for the $5, Layla. Thank you for the $10 as well. Thank you for the $1.99, Sheila. And thank you for joining as a member, Lisa Wilson. I will see you guys in the morning. I'm going to go ahead and roll. Where is it? This one real quick. Please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. All right, you guys. See y'all.